1212, I go by the name of DJ What, and you're now listening to the original Jeek podcast. Let's go!
Ready to make an entrance, so backward cut. Come on, cut for me.
Oh yeah. Whoa, slow down. Whoa, speed up.
Fresh.
Making me itch.
What up, Jeeks? My name is ROCKINMRMAGIC, and here for my man UNIQDNA. This is the original Jeek podcast. Today is season 3, episode 1. That's right, y'all. This is the start of another season. We have been so blessed to have you with us these past 2 seasons, and we are excited to kick off a better, brighter future for the original Jeek podcast. And to do that, to start, we are excited to introduce today our special guest, Steven Jackson. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, of course. We are so glad to have you here. So buckle up, Jeeks. We're going on a ride today. So, Steven, to start, we just want to explore a little bit about what makes you a Jeek, some of your Jeek fandom. So I kind of like to start with the sports side. I noticed that you're a Clemson football fan and a New England Patriots fan. Is football your main sport?
Football, yeah, and don't hold any of that against me, please. And I know not a lot of hate for the Patriots, but you can't beat 6 rings. So, the football is a great sport, but my love is hockey. I'm a huge hockey fanatic. Boston Bruins, been a hockey fan, baseball fan, anything sports, I'll watch, pretty much.
Okay, so a hockey guy. Okay.
Oh yeah,
well,
I'm a hockey dude.
All right. Well, now Clemson. Did you go to Clemson? That you have that as your college scheme? Because you mentioned the Bruins, you mentioned the Patriots, so obviously there's some New England going on there.
Oh yeah, I'm from Boston originally, so
Okay.
Gotta show love to the Beantown.
Gotcha. Okay. So at least you got an original 6 team in there. I'm Detroit. I'm a Red Wings fan all the way. Right. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So you're a Bruins fan. Okay. So if that's your main team, your hockey is your main sport. Give me your best Boston Bruin. Who's your favorite?
Oh, Bobby Orr.
That's the right answer.
Come on, man.
That's the right answer. Especially if you're born in the 80s or later, that's got to be the right answer. It's got to be Bobby Orr.
That's
awesome. Oh man, great team. You guys have had some recent success.
Yeah, we have. Red Sox took the World Series in 2018, and they pulled the usual Red Sox stuff by not doing much this year. But
true.
After waiting 84 years for that first championship in 2004, you'll take what you can get.
That's true. Because you had people who were born and died and never saw the Red Sox win the World Series. So. 04, 20, then you had another, I forget what it was, 04, was it 08?
04, 07.
07, that's right.
13 and 18, yeah.
Yeah. So, 4 in that time span, that's a rash of success there.
Yeah, it is.
And then all those Patriot wins, you had the Bruins in the Cup Finals during that time frame, and the only thing and you actually know, and then you had the Celtics won the NBA title in 08.
Celtics, yep.
So
it's good to be a Boston fan,
It's been a good decade for Boston fans. All 4 major sports. Okay. Well, as a Detroit guy, I can't say I'm happy about that, but I gotta acknowledge success where I see it. So, did you always, part of being, a Jeek and why, I'm not sure if I told you this before, but part of why we started Jeek Nation is essentially because it was hard to find people who love sports as much as they loved, their geek things, video games or, anime and things that are more on the geeky side of things. And having someone who liked both and really loved both was a really, really tough thing. So for you, was sports always a part of your, fandom, for lack of a better term?
Well, I watched a lot of sports with my dad when I was, younger, but I've always been into video games, getting into the original Legend of Zelda back in Nintendo and just falling in love with that. And then from there, being introduced to the role-playing side of it, and whether it be Final Fantasy, Dragon Warrior, that kind of stuff. I like the old school stuff more than the newer stuff.
Okay.
You get a little complicated with some of these new systems, but
yeah, you ain't lying.
Give me the old grinding, hunting down kind of, and just being overpowered by.
Right, just exploring the map and followed upon somebody like, oh snap, I got taken out. Okay, let's load and try again.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm the old school. So yeah, so that's video games. I mean, I love it. Role playing games, and that with kids. It's Mario Party and the Mario games, that kind of stuff. And I enjoy those too. But passionate about the role playing side of it.
Nice. So you mentioned watching sports with your father. The gaming part of you, did that come from just you being able to play, or did that come from a parent as well, or another family member?
Just by myself, man. I picked up the Nintendo controller. I'm like, yeah, let's do this.
Nice. So your parents were like, hey, did they buy a family system and said, here you go, here's some games, and explore, see if you like this? Nice.
Yeah, started with an Atari, so like.
Oh, that 2600 there.
Yeah, that old. Yeah, we're going in the Wayback Machine now, but yeah, started with an Atari, and from there we went Nintendo, then Sega, Super Nintendo, and eventually, PlayStation. I took care of myself, and from that point on, it's just been
nice. Okay.
Going from that.
Very cool. I have a similar where sports were more on my father's side, even though my mother was a collegiate athlete as well. So it's kind of a both for them, because we would all watch, the Pistons together and the Lions. My mom would also watch the Eagles, since she's a Philly native. One of my first memories was going to a Tigers game at 2 years old. And I, of course, being from Hockey Town, I watched my Red Wings, and Steve Yzerman is clearly the best Red Wing to me. For at least from my lifetime, obviously, Gordie Howe being the other answer in that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was mainly me, came from my father, but my gaming side actually comes from my mother, even though she doesn't like the fact that I'm a gamer. I grew up in a house with a Star Trek pinball machine. I grew up in a house that had a Pac-Man cabinet, and my mom would do better than me and my sister in Super Mario, but she somehow has this weird thing of how I became a gamer. And I'm like, yeah, looking at you. Like how many people have arcade cabinets in their homes? Not many. How many people have pinball machines in their homes? Not many. Those are games.
Yeah.
But parents, I digress. I love my mother very much, but it's it's one of the things I can attribute to her. That she is proud of is that she's a hardcore Trekkie, and that got passed on to me. That was kind of passed on to her from her mother, and I've tried to pass it on to my children. I've noticed that you yourself are quite fond of Star Trek.
Yeah, I got that from my dad, definitely. I remember watching, when I was in elementary school, watching DS9, watching Voyager, the original series. I mean, yeah, it's by far.
So watching with your dad. So when you watched with your dad, did that start off were you starting in TNG? Did you start with TOS, or what series really pulled you into that universe?
It would have to be TNG.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what it started, and then DS9 rolled out, and Voyager, kind of soon after DS9 started, so we kind of watched it when it came on UPN.
Nice. UPN reruns, yes.
Indeed. Yeah, you got it. So Wait until next week to watch that new episode. What's going to happen?
Right. Awesome. So being that you kind of got your universe, the Star Trek universe solidified in the TNG world, who is your favorite character in Star Trek?
If I had to pick
one
from any series or just
From-
specifically TNG.
I would say from TNG, just because. Oh yeah, well, just period for any series. I focus on TNG since that's kind of where most people's favorites come from, as far as the one that they started with.
Yeah, and that's a good place, but TNG, didn't really. I mean, they're okay, most of the characters, but I would have to say it's going to come from DS9.
Okay,
and that would be Garrick, the Cardassian Taylor. I love his wordplay, the quips, just the general cynicism. It provides that unique view of the world, if you will.
Yes, very cynical and pessimistic view of the world as well.
Yeah, but he's not wrong.
no, he's not wrong. That's one thing. When you have a spy that turns into a Taylor who's still hearing things and has a very cynical view of the world, he's going to share some nuggets of knowledge that that a certain Benjamin Sisko needed to hear.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's cool. He's one of those characters I don't think gets enough love because he's such a secondary character, but he was so vital to just continue to set the story and tell the story without having to have the action that was starting to become more prevalent in DS9. I felt they kind of got a little too, especially when Worf came onto the show, they started to get a little too action heavy and not Star Trekky in just the way they were telling stories. And Garrick was fantastic, and just like, what, this is a one shot. We're sitting in a tailor's shop. We're going to talk out and tell the story, in the more traditional way. I think his character is just underappreciated in my book.
Yeah, definitely. The episode that comes to mind that really and you're right about when Worf came on, it was you kind of almost lost that dark sense a little bit that DS9 brought. It was definitely different than the other series. It was definitely more the underbelly of Starfleet, if you will, just because of where they're located and stuff. But the episode that really, and I watched it over and over again on Netflix, is In the Pale Moonlight. One of my favorite episodes where Sisko just breaks down completely, all his morals, just to bring what was the Romulans into the war, the Dominion War. And Garrett was probably the star of that, mostly, I would say, with everything he did in behind the scenes. And it was just one of those episodes you just kind of back and think, well, would I do that if I was in his position?
That's a great question, and that is a fantastic episode. If you happen to be in the Jeek Nation community, Jeeks, and you may have seen In the Pale Moonlight mentioned about 20 to 50 times from our moderator JT, because he loves that episode and he is a huge DS9 fan. So it's really awesome that you mentioned In the Pale Moonlight as your big episode, because that is truly probably the most popular DS9 episode of the entire series. And I'm a huge fan, not of just the character of Sisko, but of Avery Brooks, period.
Yeah.
I've been watching Avery Brooks since Spencer for Hire and A Man Called Hawk. Like that's my dude. And the show really became a show I enjoyed when he shaved his hair and grew the beard back and essentially became Hawk in space. That show really took off for me, and he's such a complex actor. Everyone doesn't know that Avery Brooks, he's classically trained. He's done Shakespeare. Like he's amazing. So if you're not a DS9 fan, and there's one episode that you want to watch to introduce you to Star Trek Deep Space Nine, In the Pale Moonlight is the episode to watch for sure. Awesome. So that really, you've got a great base there. great fandoms, old fandoms too. Being a Boston native and a Trekkie, you know, those are two storied franchises to just to base those off. So that's awesome. So listeners, I know I just mentioned the community, but if you're not in the community, definitely join, because we want to hear about your fandoms and things like that too. And the shares that you post within the community sometimes can make it here on the show. So for today's share, we're going to talk about Call of Duty Mobile. Dion Myers, Robert Mormon, Tony Barkus, and UNIQDNA, my co-host here on the Original Jeek podcast, are all playing Call of Duty Mobile right now. And UNIQDNA has actually started a clan for us in Jeek Nation. So if you're playing Call of Duty Mobile, join the clan, post in there if you haven't, so you can get added and as a friend and get an invite to play Call of Duty with your fellow Jeeks in the Jeek Nation community. Back to our guest, Steven here. Now, you may be wondering why he's such a special guest, because all you've heard about is, you know, Boston sports and Star Trek. Well, Steven happens to be an independent game developer, and I wanted to have him share a bit about his current project and a little bit about his story. So first, Steven, tell us about what you're currently working on as a game developer.
Well, it's a traditional role-playing game. So the title, and it's gone through several different iterations, to be honest. The title is called Alternate Grace. It was originally Sacred Quest, but then as I started thinking about it and just how it's just developed and just my thoughts, and I decided to change the title to Alternate Grace just because I think it kind of solidifies better the idea behind the game. It takes a lot of my journey as a Christian, you know, the ups and the downs and just the everyday spiritual battles that we face, you know, and it's not going to be one of those happy rainbows and puppy dog kind of things. It's going to have some it's going to have some dark themes to it.
Nice.
You know, nothing overt, but at the same time, it's gonna make it. Hopefully, it makes you stop and think, like, wow, you know, what would I do in this situation? You know, kind of stuff. So yeah, my ideas will be different than what's out there. That's the plan.
Okay, cool. So obviously, you mentioned about your life, so this is very personal for you, not only as something you're working on, but it's reflective on your personal life. So when you have so much invested of yourself into the game, how is that going to be depicted within you know, an RPG?
It's going to be music, for one. Ambient sound, ambient background music is going to set the tone for most of the maps and whatnot, you know, wherever you explore in the world map or a dungeon or cave or tower, but also the interaction with the NPCs and you know, it's going to reflect on just a lot of stuff. It might not be the main character that necessarily has been through that, but you'll see elements of kind of bits and pieces of different points in people's lives. Either if they're a non-believer, you'll see that kind of interaction, and if they're a believer and haven't gone through some tough times, you're going to see the interaction too. All this stems from kind of how my journey has come through, and you know, where I'm at now, and you know, we all got more growing to do. So
yes, indeed.
But yeah, it takes a lot of my the stuff that I've been through, you know, and kind of puts it into a storytelling kind of thing.
Very cool. So I would think most people assume that when you're doing a game that's kind of based on yourself in some ways, that the protagonist would be the one driving the story. But it sounds like the parts that are more reflective for you aren't driven on the protagonist, at least directly. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, I would say right now, yeah. That's the plan. It depends, it may change, but as I develop further, but that's kind of where I want to stick with it, because it provides a different point of view. Because you know, you look at some games, you know, the silent protagonist, he doesn't say anything, you know, but my protagonist is going to have that's gonna be talking.
That's good.
Yeah.
The silent protagonist. I mean, there's so many great games that way, but it's been done to death as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. So
And definitely, I think that gives, just from what you shared with me here, gives a different perspective as far as people viewing the game and the protagonist, but also those aspects of your life, almost as you're doing a self-reflection as much as you can from a outside point of view, instead of having everything be so introspective. It's you know, how the world may be perceiving or interacting to the decisions you've made, um, between those protagonist and NPC interactions.
that's exactly how I'm approaching this. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a really cool framework there. I can imagine, like, not that I've tried to go too far, but like, I've come up with an idea for an RPG, but it was going to be about my kids and not me, thank God, because that would be really boring. A whole lot of basketball practice and football practice, and not much exploring going on in my RPG. Just, hey, I want to play in the NBA, so I'm gonna practice basketball a lot. Yeah, not that exciting. But although that game and the only other game I thought about is a wrestling game, I can't imagine trying to tell my story outside of my own perspective. So that's quite a challenge that you're undertaking there. What are you currently building it with? Are you using like Unity or?
I'm not a programmer by any stretch of the imagination. I can read code, I just can't write it. But I'm using RPG Maker MV.
Okay.
So it's easy enough for me to just kind of design the maps that way. I've got so many different resources and that I've been able to find either purchased or for non-commercial. And that's one thing too that I'll mention, that when this thing is finally finished, I'm not selling this. I'm not trying to make a profit. I just want to, basically spread the gospel. That's my goal with this game.
Awesome.
That's my goal with this game. And take it for what it's worth. Take it however, whenever you play it. Whatever you take from it. Maybe you just enjoy the game itself, and that's fine too. But yeah, that's the plan. And that's what I feel like I'm being led to do, especially for a long time. Just get it out there.
Okay. So what are you developing the game for? Like, once it's complete and you've tested, what are you what platforms are you releasing on? Is it going to be Steam only? Is it going to be on a console? Mobile?
Well, I tried a mobile, and this was the previous iteration. I tried to port it to Android, and it just because of the, and this was when I was using a previous version of RPG Maker, and I had a worse computer than what I have now. It didn't go well, especially during like scenes where the text has to line up, and I emphasize has to line up with the music for timing.
Okay.
It was lagging severely. When I finally got my newer laptop, which has a much better graphics card and faster processor, the whole thing, I was kind of like, okay, I am limitless now. So let's see what I can do to still keep it at 60 FPS.
Mm-hmm.
So it won't be mobile, just because you'll have to have a pretty. I'm not talking a top of the line. Yeah, not top of the line, but at the same time, you don't want it lagging just because of the different parts of the game, and maps and just the various effects that go on throughout it have to
right.
Not lag.
So that free LG phone that you get from Boost Mobile is not going to be able to support this game, is what he's saying.
No. Unless you take it apart and get a new one.
Right. Yeah, we're going to take this apart and build an entirely new phone.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so also obviously you're, and for those who are connected with you, know that you're a family man, and you're also working a regular job to provide. So with the blessing and demands of family and the demand of providing, what how something as time consuming as developing a game, how does that fit into your life, your life schedule, your life balance?
I work on it whenever I can. Just I'm in no rush to complete this. And that's the blessing about it. Um, I don't have a time constraint. If I'm working for a developer or anybody else, I can just work on my own pace and just take my time with it and perfect it. Because every time I'm working on it, I'm like, I don't like the way this looks, and I'll go into a pixel editor and make a couple changes to a graphic or change a tile set just because I don't like the way it looks, and the demo is going to set the tone, or I'll find find a plugin that I want to implement for a feature and find out it doesn't work. Taking my time is key with this. The two girls, life, job, everything. They all come first. God first, family second. Then I gotta make sure to take care of that stuff too. And there are days, it's a struggle.
Yeah. Oh yes, indeed.
That's kind of where I'm at. Just taking my time with it and get it done when I get it done.
Nice. Yeah, that's definitely gotta have a weight that's not on your shoulders there, being that it's your personal project and it's not something that you are also banking on making money for. So it can continue to be a passion project, I guess, for you than anything. Awesome. So, but you mentioned that you had to upgrade your computer and part of that testing process there. If someone were to say, hey, Stephen, I want to make my own RPG as well, would RPG Maker be what you personally recommend to look into using to start that?
Well, my kids actually messed around with it, so I mean they're almost 11 and 8 now. But I mean it's simple as click and drag tiles, draw on the screen. The resources that come with is enough to get you started. But I found that there was a lot more resources available for this than say like Unity or the other sites and other programs, and it's easier to use. A lot of it's just plug and play. Maybe a little bit of step involved, and if you are more advanced, especially with JavaScript, which is what our MV uses for its programming language,
Okay.
you can pretty much do whatever you want. And like I said, I probably have close to 70 or 80 plugins that I'm using in my game, just for various features. And the key, of course, making them talk and work together. But for the most part, they do the job. But you can pretty much, you're limitless. And that's what I like about this program. And I know there's a lot of debate about, a lot of junk RPG Maker games out there, and that's where it gets a bad name. But really, though, you just took something. If you want to do it easy, you can do it easy. If you want to take your time, take your time. There's more stuff out there, I think, in terms of resources and even freebies too. And the community support is very good too. So yeah, that's the best route for me. And if you just look at the start, you can always upgrade later, but it's a good base to start with.
No, that's awesome. So that covers the software part. If someone said, hey, okay, I want to start doing this, what specs on a machine would you recommend that they have to really be able to effectively test the results, obviously into like an emulated version of Android or iOS or whatever they're hoping to port the game into?
I know there's minimum requirements for the software. I can't recall what exactly it was, but you don't want the Intel graphics card for one. It will be okay, but if you start doing a lot of parallel processes with multiple events moving at once, or even background stuff, it starts to eat at your frame rate. So you need a good graphics card. I have a NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1080. I mean, it's not top of the line, but it's not the worst. It does the job. A good processor and definitely good RAM, because it's going to be resource heavy. But you don't have to make it that complex either. You want to do something simple, you can get away with a lot less. But if you really want to, build the immersion, of the game, really get some of
like
the
like
internet. You know.
like hypothetically, let's say someone wanted to build their own RPG and have it be something on the Stardew Valley graphics level, like I was, which is just a shiny 16-bit. Would they be able to get away with, like, with your build, or would they?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, they could definitely get away with it. You know, so I don't think that'd be a problem at all.
Nice. Okay. So with let's say hypothetically, let's say your game completes, and you get the urge to start developing something else, and you've got you know all the available free time, um, reasonable free time in the world. What would you develop more games?
You know, I haven't actually thought about that. But you know, if it was something I felt like I wanted to do again, then yeah, I would definitely do it. You know, if I had all the free time in the world, yeah. But you know, I wouldn't want to spend all day doing it either.
It's a lot of sitting and
the
staring.
honest answer there.
No, that's a real answer. Like, it's one of those. It's gaming. The hype that is behind gaming is so high now that the job of as a game developer almost has a luster to it that's not real. It's been hyped. It's a sexy thing to consider. You see Facebook ads and things like that saying, "Hey, take this course and become a game developer."
Oh no.
XY. And it's like, okay, but the life of a game developer is not easy. A lot of people don't want to just sit and stare at a screen continually and click and test and enter code and test, enter code and test. Like, that's what you're doing, and you're doing it, like you said earlier, on a time constraint. And you've got people over you saying, why isn't this done? I need this code done so that um, you know so that the esper can come out, or the summons can come out, or so the car can do this. Like, you're not just leisurely doing this. It's a tough job. So no, like, that's a legitimate answer, because there's a lot of work that goes into developing a game. And uh, I kind of learned that firsthand, trying to explore um, creating a game, like I said earlier, about for my girls, and kind of about them, but putting them into an RPG. And I'm like, wow, this is a lot to learn and a lot to do, and I don't have a lot of time to to try to really pursue it.
Well, yeah. Well, just look at what happened with Bethesda not too long ago either. I mean, just that ravaging of terminations, people that employed there for so long. Never mind the working conditions in some of these places too. It may be secondhand accounts, or even firsthand accounts. I mean, there's always a he said, she said aspect, but there's truth behind that, because it's very stressful, and I couldn't imagine being under. I mean, I got time constraints at work. I get stressed out about getting the next report out.
Right.
But I couldn't imagine, that level of stress, to be honest. And I read these articles, I'm thinking, yeah, that you got all, like you said, all those advertisements. Hey, 6 months, be a game designer, and then you've got to apply. Never mind that interview process, and you
Yeah,
might not be good enough.
exactly. Like Valve doesn't have people who got degrees coming up to them and saying, hey, I want to be a game developer. Like, yeah, you and 8,000 other people yesterday.
yeah, that's right.
It's like, it's. I mean, a friend of mine I worked with at Apple as a really great example. She wanted to work for Valve, actually. She even made a video and put it on YouTube, and got it was on the news, and in Seattle and in other areas, like in locally where we are here, because she had just moved from Pennsylvania to Seattle because she wanted to be close, and it was all over the place. Tons and tons of views on YouTube, and it was just her advertising herself to try to work for them. And she got an interview. Um, I know she got at least one interview, but unfortunately, she didn't get the job. Like, it's really hard to get into game development, especially if you're going to try to work for a major company, like Valve, or work for someone like EA, and it is not easy. It's not as easy as those Facebook guys make it seem like it's going to be. And you mentioned Bethesda, and every time I think of the life of a game developer and being hard, I think of Telltale. We talked about the demise of Telltale Games, in previous episode of the original Jeek podcast, but they to me are now like the poster child for how game development as a business can just go wrong.
Yeah, definitely.
And how they had everything going for them, and the success behind Walking Dead and the Wolf Among Us and the Batman game. It's like, how are they struggling? And then you find out they ain't got no money, and they let everybody go. Oh, I can't imagine that type of. And then you still have contracts to fill. It's like, what that's some real pressure right there. So, last question around development here. You shared that you wanted to tell the story. So, and obviously, this is obviously going more into your personal and spiritual beliefs as a Christian there. So, but can you elaborate a little bit more in detail as far as where sharing your story turned into making it into a game?
Well, it started, and this was about to kind of hit deep a bit. I won't go into too much detail, but
don't have to be too vulnerable.
Oh no, yeah, no, I know that. I gotta make sure I express it so that the gist comes out. But we had a serious event about 4 years ago. Just bad spot. I'll just put it that way.
Gotcha.
And I at that point I had completely fallen out of my faith. I was as lost as lost could be. And one day I just snapped out of it. Things improved. Putting God first is key, and that's kind of one of the elements I'm going to be putting into the game. But I first started I started dabbling in writing a book, kind of looking at a gaming aspect in the Bible, and then it just developed into, well, I'm going to make a game. And at first it was this is why I think it didn't go as well, at least in terms of me just having the passion to do it. I was just kind of doing it from one perspective. I'm like, no, I'm gonna share what happened. I'm gonna go through the childhood. I'm gonna go through every piece of where I need to remember God's there. I was saved at 11, but I never had that relationship. And then a few years back, we just rededicated, and my wife and I rededicated one another, and it just got better from there. I said, well, if you put God first, he will take care of you. He will provide. Same thing with my job situation. I was applying for jobs I knew I could get, but I wasn't getting them. And again, putting in God's hands, just waiting on him that he has it, that he'll take care of you. And now I'm in a job which I couldn't be happier for it. Just everything has gone so well, but that's because you put God first. And I'm not saying there's not going to be days of struggle and days where you don't feel right, and and Lord knows I've got work to do. But
yes, as we all
I got work to do, and I have stuff I struggle with, and everybody has their demons. But that's kind of how I want to go about this. Is that I'm not saying everybody's story is different, and I'm not saying you're gonna find your story in this. You might not even have any idea of where it's going, or you might not even connect with it. But still, I want a good game plan. I want the story to be compelling. It's going to be challenging. It's not going to be an easy thing to navigate, and that's by design, because my life as a Christian, life is not easy. You're going to be faced with challenges, but giving it to God will help you. And that's just how I look at it. I'm not saying praying while you're facing a boss, please let that hit not kill me. I'm down to 1 hit point. miss it ain't gonna work. Heal potion, come on, that kind of thing.
Right.
God doesn't use cheat codes, so
Right. God is not a game genie.
no, he's not. Nope. Up, down, up, down.
Right. Enter the Konami code. That's awesome. I appreciate you sharing from that point of vulnerability there. That's really awesome. So off the main subject, we're gonna have a little fun before I let you go. We're gonna play a little One Has to Go. So I'm gonna give you 4 options, and we're gonna go back to the Star Trek universe. So we're gonna do 4 captains and 1 captain, and its respective series has to go.
Okay.
So your options are James Tiberius Kirk, Jean-Luc Picard, Benjamin Sisko, and Catherine Janeway.
I could talk on hours on all 4 of them.
Hey, roughly we've got 18 minutes, so
yeah. So pick one, huh?
Yeah, one. You have to get rid of one forever.
Get what? Okay, I'm gonna get some hate for this. I will say I'm gonna have to get rid.
Well, actually, before you say,
okay,
eliminate by who so take off the board who you're keeping first, and then and with the elimination.
Okay, now I know who I'm keeping.
Okay.
I know who I'm keeping. I'm gonna. I have to get rid of Janeway.
Okay, so you're keeping Kirk and Picard.
And that's not a misogynistic point of view. Please throw it out there. I don't want to start getting some hate mail on my Facebook. But there's a reason behind that.
I think you're safe. We'll make sure you're safe. Moderators, look out for Steven.
Yeah, right.
We're not going to let him get attacked. Nobody's going to ban Steven.
And I will say it was close between Kirk and Janeway, but I'll have to.
Okay, well, go into that. Why it's close between Kirk and Janeway?
Well, you obviously Picard and Sisko. Sisko not so much with the command experience, but he was put in a unique situation with being the emissary, so he kind of had a double life, and he had to balance both, and that takes some character. Never mind when he's put in some positions, he always looked at every option first, before he made a decision. Picard, I mean, just Picard. I mean, I don't have anything to say about that. But looking at Kirk and looking at Janeway, I know it's 2 different decades you're looking at, but Janeway, I always felt, because I watched Voyager a lot, and I just don't think that she was always conflicted. You never mind the fact that she was stranded in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
She had to make a lot of concessions to her integrity, whereas you look at Kirk. Except for the womanizing part of it, not so much. He wasn't put in the same position. But when it came to some of those decisions with Janeway, especially in the series finale, Endgame, you see it all culminate in what she's willing to do. I don't know how many counts it was in the I forgot what episode it was. But the whole temporal prime directive kind of thing, and how many violations, and she didn't do well in those, having to go back and reset. And then in the one episode when they get back to the 90s, no, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of something else, the Equinox episode, where she basically lashes out at that captain for his decisions, but she was doing the same thing the entire time. So that's a decision right there. If you're going to stick to your guns, but don't make concessions and then go after someone who's kind of done the same thing you have. So that was the tiebreaker right there.
Okay. She had a rough time of it. I mean, you mentioned the compromise and concessions. I mean, from episode 1, I mean, she's integrating a Maquis crew into a Starfleet crew. It's like, yeah, all right, we're starting off with making concessions here. It's
Exactly
a really tough situation she had. Okay, well that makes sense. I could definitely. It probably would have been closer for me. Jane, if I had to pick, for me, growing up with TOS, there's no way Kirk comes off, because even though some people don't like him, especially those who were not introduced into Star Trek with TOS, he's still always he's the blueprint for all Star Trek captains. If you're a Star Trek captain, you're everything you're doing is inspired in some way by Kirk. It would probably honestly for me be between Picard and Janeway, and I know I'll get hate for that because Picard is so beloved. I was never big on Picard. Just I found his lack of his indecision at times to be really annoying, and I really hated having those constant meetings in in his little away room. They're like, hey, let's go duck into my side office here and talk things out. Like, bro, let's make a decision. Like you're there, you're on the bridge. There's no need to duck away, with your senior officers and talk it out some more. I've never seen so many boardroom meetings in sci-fi before TNG. I'm like, oh look, here we are, everyone with the purple chairs, and let's talk it out again. I'm like, dude, let's stop talking, let's do something, make a decision. And
I can see that, but that directs you to episodes where he had to deal with Sarek, making that decision of basically, taking his mind over while doing those negotiations, times errors. Another one, he was faced with some hard decisions there too.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, I get what you're saying completely, but then you have those that kind of, at least in my mind, kind of set him apart a little bit because he was forcing those tougher decisions.
And I think when they started to get some feedback on his character, they developed, let Picard be a little more assertive. And hey, I give Picard's props. Dude got stabbed, he relived his life, got stabbed in the heart and laughed. That's gangster.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
That's a real G right there. You got stabbed in the heart and laughed about it. And I can't take Cisco off because what episode 3 he punches Q. Like my man punched Q. It's like you punched the Star Trek equivalent of God. Like, okay, no, there's no way you come off, man.
No.
So that leaves poor Janeway with you didn't do anything as epic as those 3, unfortunately. And that, I don't think that's even completely her fault, because as being in a different quadrant expands the realms of opportunity. It also, I think, kind of limited her in other ways where you had some of the familiarity, always interacting with races that you've seen before, being able to have different situations with those races where when everything is completely new, it just I think it limited them a little bit in a weird way, and it kind of bottlenecks you. And I was like, her big thing to me at the end of the series was like, oh, it was really just the Borg. Everything's her and the Borg, and that kind of got redundant for me to a point where when the series was still on TV, that I was like, you know what, I'm done. I ended up catching up before the season series finale, but I was like, all right, I'm kind of bored, kind of sick of Tom Paris. Like, he's on my list of for me of most hated Star Trek characters. Like him, Crusher. I don't like Riker. Like those Crusher, Paris, Pulaski, and Riker are my 4 most disliked characters. Like I can't stand them, and that's only probably because I haven't watched Enterprise. And
Don't get me started with that one.
And JT gets on me for not watching Enterprise yet. He's like, I understand that you haven't seen Discovery because it's hard to see it, but you haven't watched Enterprise at all. I'm like, everyone told me how bad it was, and I'm like, do I really want to see, Scott Bakula in space? Like, I like Bakula, but I don't know.
That's a whole other discussion.
Right. And we
watched it twice, and I'm like,
no. And that discussion we don't have time for. Well, well, Stephen, thank you so much for coming on the show. We greatly appreciate your time and just sharing with us on your gaming development, and obviously a little bit into your life here. And as we close, Jeeks, I want you to know that we cannot do this podcast without you and your continued support. So please rate and review the show on your podcasting app of choice. We are on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, CastBox, and more. And if you can't find us, let us know at jeeknation@gmail.com or message us on Facebook at Jeek Nation, and we will make sure that we submit so that we can get on your favorite podcasting tool. And until next time, y'all, peace.
Ready to make an entrance, so backward cut.
Come on, clap for me.
Oh, yeah. Whoa, slow down. Whoa, speed up.
This is DJ What, and you're listening to the original Jeek podcast.